What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the next episode of the Chernobyl series, where I am recapping and reviewing every single episode of Chernobyl, which you can find on HBO Max right now. It is a series that came out back in 2019. I've already recorded the first 3 episodes, and today it is time to recap and review episode number 4, The Happiness of All Mankind. If you are not caught up through episode 4, this is the time for you to push pause and then come back once you have caught up. But there will be full spoilers from this point forward, as I am, recapping the entire episode. So with all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into it. At Legasov's demand, the Chernobyl exclusion zone is expanded and hundreds of liquidators are conscripted to decontaminate the forest, topsoil, and wildlife. This includes a team dispatched to kill all the surviving pets. So what's really good about this opener is we get a sense of how the Russian military is handling the evacuations, and also like how the normal people and the families are dealing with the repercussions of this disaster. And with it being in Russia, it's obviously their way or the highway. And I don't know. It feels like in this particular episode, more so than the previous 3 episodes, there's just this sense of tension. There's a sense of just absolute dread in every single scene. It's almost kind of heartbreaking when you move through this episode at some of the more graphic things that happened during the disaster cleanup. And in this opener, we have this woman that owns this farm, and she's not leaving because of something that she can't even see. And I mentioned this, I think, a couple episodes ago, that it felt like they had to create tension for tension's sake, and they had to really show all these analogies for what was going on to kind of keep you invested in the storyline, especially when you can't see what's going on. It felt very much like The Happening, but actually good. So she's not leaving because she can't see it. She's not afraid of something that she can't see with her own eyes. And after all the wars and after all the famine that she has had to deal with through her lifetime, she's not about to leave the farm because of something she can't see. And then at that point, the Russian soldier shoots the cow and forces her to leave. And also really great about this scene is the score. It really highlights just how bleak and just how grim this entire situation is. This whole episode is just, it's really fucking heavy. There's just so much dread throughout the entire episode. I thought they did a great job with just writing this and then executing it. Because on paper, it seems like, hey, this might not work as well as we think it will. Because again, it goes back to that whole thing of the audience is not going to see anything. It's going to have to be us communicating just how bad this is to them for them to feel that sense of dread. And we're going to have to compound it with the score. And I think they really do a great job, especially in this scene. But they continue to hit home every single episode with descriptive language and analogies, and they're able to convey to you just how terrible this situation is. And it's like, no matter how many times they describe how bad everything actually is, like, I still think it's super interesting. Like, they could say the same thing multiple times. They said the Hiroshima thing a couple of times, where it's like 40 of those bombs every hour. And all that is just super compelling to me. And I just think they do a great job of showing that how deadly this radiation is with every single episode, and able to keep our interest. The cinematography throughout this episode, and really the whole series in general, is really great. But in this episode, I feel like it's taken up a notch. It is just absolutely incredible cinematography. The imagery of the cleanup process is just so haunting. And I don't mean just the visuals of like the helicopters overhead or the people in like full turnout gear spraying everything. I'm not talking just that stuff. Like the actual images and visuals on the screen. But the score really elevates all of that to the next level. It's just eerie and haunting with everything that they are presenting to us. It seems like this would be a part of a made-believe world where they just went through an apocalypse of some sort. So I think they do a great job with the cinematography, especially in this episode, more so than the first 3. So meanwhile, Legasov and Shcherbina attempt to clear nuclear graphite and other debris from the Chernobyl rooftop using a German robot. However, it is fried instantly by by the radiation, which was falsely reported by the Soviet Central Committee to avoid humiliation. Now, that's kind of a brief overview of some of the scenes that just happened, but a lot of the scenes here, especially between Legasov and Shcherbina, some really great scenes. We have this moment where Legasov cracks his first smile when the rover is removing the graphite. You got Legasov making a rover quip to Shcherbina when he says, and to think that's the one we put on the moon. And Legasov is like, well, I mean, not that one. And Shcherbina is just like, no shit, Sherlock. It was a good moment overall that was very much needed to break up everything that was so dreadful about this episode. Then we have a great scene between Khomyuk and Dyatlov in the hospital. He's still going to die on the hill that he had nothing to do with that reactor exploding until she shows him a picture. And while questioning him, he just claps back with, so you're pinning this all on me. And like, the dude is so fucking arrogant. And hey, I kind of respect him for dying on the hill, that he is not going to accept the blame for any of this. But come on, dude. Like, the writing's on the wall. You were partially responsible for all of this. But that dude is not going to admit that he had any play in any of this. But he also, maybe he didn't directly push the button that caused all of it, but he sure as shit blew everything off, no pun intended. Now, earlier in this episode, we do get introduced to Pavel, who is one of the guys that enlist with the military to help clean up and kill all the animals. He's a very interesting character. He's responsible for the animal control, and if you are a dog lover, you are not going to like this episode whatsoever. But you do get attached to his character, and I do appreciate the fact that he conveys a lot of emotions without ever talking. He doesn't have very many speaking lines in this episode, but they do a great job of really showing you like how killing all of these dogs really affects him emotionally. And it's just some really great acting by Barry Keoghan. At one point he struggles to kill a dog, and then after that, he's just killing them left and right. Doesn't really faze him. And then he comes up on like a mama and her puppies, and he just can't pull the trigger on any of those. But Baco goes in there, tells him to leave, and takes care of the puppies. But throughout all of this, we have Baco, who is trying his best to console this young man. And he is doing like the worst job ever. And he is basically telling him that after all this killing, you kind of just wake up one day and you realize that was you all along. And I'm like, God damn, bro. I don't know if you're doing any help for this young man. Like, he is struggling with all this, and you're really not helping the situation here. But those entire scenes are really good and really emotional, especially if you're a dog lover. They did a great job of showing the horrors of going through and killing all these pets. They took their time and kind of made a side story of this disaster and really focused on the cleanup process and the horrors of having to kill all these animals that frankly didn't deserve it. Now, Shcherbina has kept his cool the entire time throughout this series. The entire time. The dude is fucking stone when it comes to conveying any type of emotion or really just being pissed off at the Russian government for how they are handling things. He's usually always siding with the government. He's usually making it seem not as bad as it actually is, and basically just telling them the truth that they need to hear. Maybe not the whole truth, but a portion of it that will kind of get them off their backs a little bit. And Shcherbina has a huge crash out moment in this episode. And what's great about this huge crash out is it really works for his character. And Skarsgård brilliantly portrays the character here. The whole time Shcherbina has been with Legasov, and Legasov has been telling him about the horrors of the explosion, and Shcherbina has just been kind of seeing what it is in real time. And he's been kind of blowing it off up to this point. He just finally snaps at the government officials and knows this shit is serious, but they are practically handcuffed by the Russian government at this point. And it's politics. Now, one of the last scenes of this episode legitimately might be one of my favorite sequences in TV history. Like, in terms of the cinematography, in terms of the emotions that we have led to this moment, in terms of the score, how it's shot, everything. a 10 out of 10 scene. It's basically a one long take sequence, and it's when they're on the roof, the soldiers, and they're throwing the graphite and debris over the rail. It is legitimately one of the most heart pounding sequences I've seen in any TV series ever. It had me on the edge of my seat. It was just palpable tension, and they increase it by tenfold by adding the dosimeter to it, clicking rapidly in the background. It's just a phenomenal long take sequence that, now, if y'all have been following the podcast for any length of time, I absolutely fucking love one take scenes. They are some of my favorite things in film, period. But the camera here is chaotic. It's wobbly to really highlight just how chaotic the situation and the mission is that they are doing. And the soldier that the camera is following is, he's stumbling, he's panicking, and the camera mirrors that behavior just phenomenally. It is just a brilliantly tense and terrifying sequence altogether. I cannot say enough good things about this one particular scene. It had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. So despite Soviet state redactions and secrecy, Khomyuk learns that Exit 5 causes a brief spike in nuclear reactivity. Legasov knew this fact from a colleague who discovered that the control rods in RBMK reactor cores are tipped with graphite, who then warned the Kremlin 10 years before Chernobyl, but was rebuked. Khomyuk urges Legasov to broadcast this design flaw to the International Atomic Energy Agency at a conference in Vienna. Shcherbina warns Legasov of the personal dangers of exposing state secrets, proposing a deal with the KGB to quietly fix the reactors. And then Vasily's wife, the one that she was in there and he was touching her stomach and all that, we learned that she did end up giving birth, and her baby ended up dying 4 hours later due to radiation exposure from Vasily. But it is good to end this episode on learning how this explosion finally happened. It took 4 episodes, but I think they did a great job of kind of like sprinkling breadcrumbs along the way. Like, we kind of knew, but we didn't really know. And I think they expand on it just enough to really be like, okay, that was satisfying. Maybe not the most amazing reveal ever, but I do think that it was good to have it in this episode and not the last episode for sure. But what's crazy about all this is that Khomyuk does all this fucking work, and Legasov already knew the answer to it. It's crazy. Like, you just made her go in there and interview every single person from that night, and you already knew the answer to it. Legasov kind of learning some of those Russian tactics here, where he's only telling them what they need to know. So we have this real division of two characters who have kind of split and gone the opposite ways. Shcherbina is crashing out against the government after being with them the entire series so far. And then the complete opposite from Legasov here, where, oh yeah, I knew that. Like, the dude has been pro, let's fix this shit, and anti-Russian government this entire time. And now this feels like he has been keeping it very close to the chest here, not trying to spill state secrets, which he knows that once this gets revealed to the public, it's all downhill from there. But Khomyuk is standing for humanity and not with the Soviets. Shcherbina brings up a good point here that they can't possibly humiliate a country that does everything not to look humiliated and is always seen as powerful. So I think it's great to end the episode with that. And it definitely leads into what can be a very climactic finale for this series. Like, where is this all going to go? Is the Russian government going to be pissed off about all this being revealed, and then we're going to have everybody being capped at the very end of the episode? That's the way it feels like where it's leading. But guys, let me know down below of how you felt about episode number 4. Is it the best of the series? I would put it up there with, was it episode 2? Where it was my favorite episode of the series so far. This one's up there. I just think for a slower episode where we get to really spend some time with some side characters or some characters that we haven't even been invested with yet, I thought this episode was fucking fantastic, especially that one long take sequence, which is the best of the series to me. But yeah, let me know down below your thoughts of episode 4. And with that being said, that's going to be it for me, and I'll catch y'all next time on another episode. Laters.